Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today I am going to be showing you how to make these cute little teeny tiny cactuses, or cacti if you want to be right about how to say more than one cactus. But anyway, they're super small and just another fun 3D quilling project to master. So for supplies, you're going to need any green. I'm using Meadow Green from Craft Harbor. We're also going to be putting these in little pots later, so you're going to need any brown, white for the quills, and we're going to have a little surprise later, so you're going to need kind of a neon color. I'm using a hot pink. For glue, I'm going to be using both tacky glue and Elmer's white glue in a needle nose container. For my quilling tool, I have a needle tool here. If you have an electric or a battery operated quilling tool, you can use that. Mine is being kind of junky all of a sudden and falling apart, so I don't think I'm going to be using that very much today. Tweezers will also come in handy, and then if you have a workboard to top with wax paper, go ahead and do that because you might need a place to rest your quilling on. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to form the body of the cactus, and it's going to be made in two parts. They're both going to be exactly the same size. If anybody watched the antique inspired ornament video that I made a few weeks ago, this is going to be very reminiscent of that process. What we're going to do is take 3 strips of, this is 24-inch quilling paper, tear the ends off of both sides, and glue them all end to end, so you have one super long strip. Once you have your long strip made, you're going to go ahead and roll that up into a tight coil. And again, my battery operated tool was being kind of weird today, so I didn't use it for this project, but if you had, you're welcome to do that. I'm just going to roll it up about halfway or so on my needle tool, and then once it gets kind of unruly, I'm going to take it off and roll it by hand to finish it off. When you have your tight coil completely wound, you're going to apply some glue to the end and attach that so your shape stays in place. You're also going to need a second tight coil of the same exact size. We're going to end up putting these two pieces together to make the cactus. First, you need to form the body, so just use your fingers to gently push from the underneath until you get the shape you want. If you use a quilling mold, that is fine as well. I just chose to use my fingers for this part, so I'm just pushing from the underneath, and I'm kind of looking for more of like a stubby end. I don't want it to be super pointed. I sort of like it to be kind of tall, but then kind of just stop on the bottom, because we're going to be planting these later, and it's nice to sort of have a solid base on the bottom so it doesn't tip over. And whenever you're doing 3D quilling, you're going to put some glue around the inside, just like I did there, and wipe it out. I had forgot to mention adding a small paintbrush earlier to the supply list, so I figured I would just show what happens if you don't happen to have one of those. You can use your finger instead. It's fine. So after I molded the first one, I molded the second, and I didn't want them to be exact mirror images of each other, both sides. I kind of like in these cactus to have one a little bit more shallow than the other side. So this part's going to be the more shallow side. Just push and pull until you're happy with the shape, and then apply some glue to the inside. And again, I'm going to wipe that out. That's what's going to keep your 3D shape. After your two sides have dried, you can start building your little cactus body. So to do that, that's where the tacky glue comes in handy because it will set a lot faster than your white glue. I applied a little bit around the edge of one cactus and then put them together. Even if they don't fit exactly perfect, mine or sort of off a little bit here, that's okay. We're going to be covering up that seam later. But as long as your coils started off around the same size, they should more or less line up. But don't forget to wipe off any excess glue. You can cover up that seam once your shape is dry and set and staying together. And to do that, you're just going to need a small piece, a couple inches or so, of the same green that you used to make the cactus, and pretty much just wrap it around the seam just to kind of camouflage it. So I'm just going to pretty much just glue one end and then wrap it around and glue the other side so it stays on. Next, it's time to make the pot that your cactus is going to sit in. I try to make them more or less the same diameter as the cactus. I just think proportionately that looks the best. So this is another tight coil made up of about the same length of quilling paper. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to form a dome, but this time I really want to make sure that I have the bottom be nice and flat because you're going to want these to stand up on their own. And if your pot isn't flat on the bottom, it's going to sort of fall around. So I push on the bottom to make sure that I have that part nice and flat. And then I'll apply my glue to the inside, just like always, and wipe it out so that it can set in the shape that I want. And one last thing with these pots is you want something in there that's going to allow the cactus to kind of sit up in there. See how this one is just kind of sitting up? It's not all the way down because in a pot, you know, your plant doesn't sit at the bottom of the pot. There's soil that it sits on top of, obviously. So I just have a little scrap piece of craft paper here that I'm just going to bunch up, and I'm going to glue that in there. If you don't have that, you could use something like another coil, probably is what I would do. It's just a smaller coil, set that in there, and then put the cactus on top. Now I can go ahead and glue my cactus on top of the paper in my pot. Tacky glue again would be great for this. You're going to want to decide which way you want your cactus to sit. I kind of like the thinner, longer end going into the pot. I think it just looks more cactus-like that way. And I'm just going to hold it there for a few minutes. And that's that. The next step for your little tiny quilled cactus is going to be putting on the needles. So for that, we're going to be using our white quilling paper. Any size or length will do, but using it on its own in that 1/8 inch standard size is going to be a bit too much, too bulky. So I'm going to use some scissors and cut that in half just to make really thin strips. If you happen to have 1/16 inch quilling strips, by all means, go ahead and use those. And after I have it to the width that I want, I'm just going to tear them into about 1-inch sections. These don't need to be very big at all. Then we're just going to roll these up into a coil on your needle tool, and before you take it off, we're just going to put a tiny bit of glue right on there and finish rolling it up so it stays in a tight coil. But then when you take it off, the next step is you're going to want to pinch them so they're flat. And those are what are going to act as the needles on your cactus. Make as many or as few needles as you want for your cactus. When you're ready to apply them, I would go for the tweezer and dip method of gluing. It's just going to be, I think, easier than trying to apply glue to every single little one, even with a needle nose bottle. So I just pick them up with my tweezers, dip them in a little bit of glue. This is just Elmer's glue. They stuck pretty easily and pretty quickly. And I'm just going to put them wherever I think is best. Space them out a bit. Try not to make it look too perfect because it's nature, and nature is never perfect. There you go, just like that. The last step you can take if you'd like is to decide if you want to give your cactus a little flower. That's what that hot pink was for earlier. And when I made mine, I just took a few inches of that pink paper, rolled them all the way up into a teardrop, which, if you need reminding, is a coil that is let open up just a bit, glue the end down, close it up, and then give one side a good pinch. That's going to make your teardrop shape. And I used 5 of those to make a little pink flower. Nothing fancy, just a little pink flower. There it is. Super basic. And that I'm going to put right on the top, I think. Oh, sorry, guy. Right on the top of this cactus. I left some space where I didn't put any needles, and that is the perfect spot for this pink flower. We can also talk about variations on these because I've made a whole garden here. I have one just plain that I've been showing all along. Here's the one we just made with the little pink flower. If pink is not your color, you can try maybe an orange flower, and there's a different colored pot for that one, but then they get really fun. Whoopsie, sorry guys, sorry. Here is a different shade of green, but then I started doing little friends that are growing on the side of them. And those are made the same exact ways we did the main body, just smaller sizes. And this guy, I mean, come on, he's my favorite. Look at this. So 3 little friends coming off the side, different kind of flower. So fun. I just love this one. These just make me so happy. You know, they're not the kind of quilling that you'd put on a card or put in a frame or anything like that, but look how sweet they look just lined up. You can put them on a windowsill. I don't know, they just make me smile. So I hope everybody has fun with this project. Again, practicing your 3D quilling is great because you can really use your imagination and build stuff you might not have thought of with your average type of quilling. So any questions, as always, leave them down below. I will have all supplies left in the descriptions box below. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll be notified for my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.